We see that another Navy lieutenant has come forward and said that the power plant mission has ruined his health. It's now up to 100 people. At the time that we talked to a sailor a few weeks ago that was on the USS Ronald Reagan that was dispatched to Fukushima, at that time it was only 79 sailors who were saying that they had contacted various diseases that they believe were a result of going to Fukushima and being exposed to high level of radiation in both drinking water as well as showers and hanging out in that local area. It's been almost 3 years since Fukushima happened. We're only about 2 weeks to the third anniversary. Says the Navy rushed in to help, but those sailors are now paying the price. Nearly 100 of them believe that the mission ruined their health. Now, the way CBS News Baltimore reports this, they say the U.S. military sped to the disaster zone for help, not knowing it was headed into the path of a radiation plume. That's not really convincing. And this is what the lieutenant says. He says, when you've got a nuclear power plant that's melting down, how can you not expect health risks to come from that? Now, of course, they're not getting any help from either the Japanese government, TEPCO, or the U.S. military. They're suing TEPCO for this. And the U.S. military says, well, we understand these people are very sick, but government reports indicate that the radiation levels on the USS Ronald Reagan were well below what's considered to be dangerous. Why? Because they continually redefine the radiation levels to suit whatever their current purpose is. Now, one of the things that we learned from Fukushima was that it's not just a reactor failure like we saw at 3 Mile Island or like in Chernobyl that we have to be concerned about. It's also the storage of the nuclear waste. This is still the major concern at Fukushima, and we see that this is happening here in the U.S. We had 13 people exposed to radiation at a New Mexico plant. They were handling waste. It was waste leak that was exposed to them, and this is something that we're seeing more and more as we see old plants that are getting older and older, and they're starting to leak water, they're starting to leak from the storage vessels, and yet they continue to extend the licensing of these plants, which were initially licensed for maybe only 20, 25 years. They just arbitrarily extend it for another couple of decades or 30 or 40 years. So we're continually seeing breakdowns of equipment. We're seeing leakage of radiation. And that's what we really need to be concerned about, is that not just a catastrophic failure like we saw at Fukushima, but the low-level constant leaking and the bioaccumulation that happens with radiation. We have these nuclear power plants all over the United States, and the former head of the NRC has said we need to shut down all of them and redesign them from the ground up because they all have the same fundamental problems with nuclear waste storage that we see at Fukushima.
The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding, making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
The brainwashing media machine has been turned up on high, and it's time for humanity to double down on the true people's media and strike back against the tyrants that are destroying our civilization with their lies and fraud. We are the resistance. You are the resistance. You are the InfoWar. It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the InfoWar to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv.